Hi everybody, it's Linnea for InkOn3. Today I'm going to be showing you an easy watercolor card using Atelier Inks. I'm using my favorite stamp set from InkOn3. This is the Posy stamp set. I love that picture. I think in fact that maybe this summer I'm going to alter this picture and maybe hand draw some lemons or oranges or little strawberries or something in there and kind of create a summer drink picture. I think that would be a really cute idea. Anyway, this card, I'm just using this simple big flower and I'm just laying out the card how I think it's going to look in my head. I have a piece of watercolor cardstock. I don't use any fancy watercolor cardstock. I have some Canson cold press heavyweight, I think it's 140 pounds, and that's just what I like to watercolor on. Any watercolor cardstock should work for this technique. It's very easy, and in fact I'm not using a lot of water. You could probably even use Bristol Smooth cardstock. So I'm going to start with what image I need to stamp first, which is going to be the one that's kind of in the background, the one I'm building off of, the picture. I'm stamping this twice. So I am using the InkOn3 Juicy Embossing ink as well as the Blackout Hybrid Detail ink. I'm stamping the Juicy Embossing ink first, and then right over top of that I'm stamping the Blackout Hybrid Detail ink. You can do this both ways. You can stamp with the embossing ink and then ink up the blackout ink, or you can ink up with the embossing ink, stamp, and then come back and stamp with the blackout ink. I did it both ways, and neither way made any bit of difference. I'm doing both inks because I want to heat emboss this, and the blackout ink, although it's a hybrid ink, I wasn't sure that I would work quickly enough that I could use an embossing powder with it because I was building the stamp and I was actually stamping 3 different times. The picture and the sentiment, and then the stem, and then the flower. So I didn't want the ink to dry before I could get the embossing powder on it, so that's why I also used that Juicy Embossing ink. So once my image is all stamped, I did heat emboss it with the crystal clear embossing powder from InkOn3, and now I'm just going to come in and do a bit of watercoloring. I'm using Atelier Inks to do my watercoloring. These inks are gorgeous for ink blending, regular stamping, and for watercoloring. I used Goddess Green for the stem, and now I'm using Sweet Petunia Pink. This is one of the newer colors, and for this, all I'm using is a fine tip watercolor brush from InkOn3. I'm picking up the Sweet Petunia Pink ink right off of my glass work surface and adding a little line of that where there should be shadows. So where the petal is at the center point of the flower, as well as where it's kind of another petal is overlapping. I'm putting down a thick line of that ink, and then off camera I'm just dabbing off my brush onto a towel, also from InkOn3, and then I'm just bringing in my brush with clear water and blending that out. Now I ended up using Maryland Red on the little like the outer portions of the petals where it's kind of dark, and the red against the pink, it just wasn't doing it. So I watered down some Maryland Red and I ended up coloring over the rest of the flower, so it's this pretty kind of poppy red color. For the picture itself, I'm taking Trinity Teal, and I, again, smushed that down onto my work surface, and I picked up some of it pretty much directly from my little puddle of color and watercolored where the etching lines, where the kind of shadows are, the glare, and then I'm watering it down quite a bit to color in the rest of the picture. I wanted it to have a glass look. I didn't want it to look like a solid color, so I'm watering down that Trinity Teal quite a bit and just coloring over that whole picture. Once I was done, I used InkOn3's liquid pixie dust, and I colored over the picture and the flower, and you can see between that crystal clear embossing powder and the liquid pixie dust, this simple card has a lot of shimmer and shine. Now whenever I do simple one-layer cards, I like to kind of step them up and make them not one layer anymore. I just can't do it. So I'm cutting off 1/8 of an inch off of each side. So I'm going to have 1/4 of an inch smaller than a traditional A2 card. I'll grab an A2 card base and foam mount my watercolored panel on top, and that's going to finish off this clean and simple card. I've linked all of the InkOn3 products I used in the video description below. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you soon. Bye!